I can handle it. The pun very much intended. Today we're going to do some anime and manga things. This is one exercise I do with some of my students where it involves taking a character and finding a picture of a real life model or person. So if you guys don't know, this is Mr. Sakamoto from Sakamoto Days and Jack Black. And what we're going to do is I'm going to combine everything here together to have Mr. Sakamoto also be in the same pose as Jack Black. I'm going to zoom in here real quick. For those of you who are wondering, I'm using an app called Sketchbook Autodesk. It is my personal favorite thing to teach and use personally because it's just very user-friendly. And let's see. Normally through this, we would start off with some figure drawing, where we start learning how to break down the character. And conveniently, it's been done for us. Good job. And then we break it down just a little bit more, clean up our sketches, and add color and more color. Here's my reference models, actual real life people. And today, we're going to attempt to draw Zoro and Tanjiro. The fun part about this whole exercise is that I can get either super creative or I can just focus on the details. And I think I might do both. One of the things I like telling my students a lot is don't put everything on one layer if you don't want to cry. If you do want to cry, put everything on one layer and see what happens when you have to erase one tiny thing. I followed the line over here of this swordsman's spine, so I can do that for Tanjiro. So for example, I'm going to do this. His back is kind of curved. Zoro's back over here is more like straight. So that's what these lines are for. Now, I'll make sure I check my references. I like this one. Oh. So I can actually like see his head more. That's what we're going to try and mimic. And if it doesn't come out perfect 100%, I think I'll survive. Yeah, I'll survive. How I learned how to draw was a combination of a lot of observational drawing and learning about positive and negative space. So what I mean by that is I am literally staring at everything that is not occupied by the character. And I'm comparing it, and to the best of my ability, I'm trying to mimic it. There's no undo button in physical artwork. And there's only so much an eraser can do on paper you've already sketched and inked. It's like once you make the commitment, you have to. Versus digital art, if I'm nervous, I could just put layers on layers and then I could change it up ever so slightly. Also the coloring. I am not a huge fan of like coloring my own artwork or any artwork, so if I do it, it took a lot. But for here, for like digital, I could be like, oh, let me just test out every single color combination and everything will be fine. Versus if I touch a piece of paper, I'm like, that color's gonna stay there forever. But there's just something nice about drawing an actual physical paper. Like when you hear the pencil and it makes that little scratchy sound, that's nice. If my students are actually watching this, this is why I tell you guys to practice figure drawing. Shapes are also important to know when you're drawing. Shapes. If you can draw a shape, or I tell my students, like if you can draw a circle, you can do almost anything. Same with squares and rectangles. Hands are circles and rectangles and... Okay. Oh, let me just grab one thing. So circles and squares. So if I can do this, triangle. This is actually how I teach how to draw hands. With kids and with teens, there's always like a marker near me. So yeah. Once you can break everything down into shapes, you can do it.
I would always just avoid it. I just put a circle of a hand.
You do circles for hands, or you hide them in pockets, or you like hide the hand, but eventually like you're gonna need hands. And I don't have I have dinner later today. This is gonna wash off, right? Also, if I made something look way too easy, I don't look my age, and I've been doing this for a while. Something I have to say to almost every single student. They're like, how'd you do that? And I'm like, been doing this. It's just a little bit longer than you have. And they're like, did you start drawing last year? I'm like, no. No, I started drawing like in the 90s. I feel so exposed. If anyone wants to guess, I am older than Google and Pokemon.
What?
Original Pokemon. Red version. Came out in like 1996. Google is 26 years old. If I'm right, if you want to look that up. I'm not going to say I looked that up and memorized that information, but I really did. All right, so as maybe you can see, I moved some things over to make it easier for me to check my references. Again, using the magic lasso tool.
Do you think there's space for AI in art?
I think, oh my gosh. There's two halves to me. There's the practical half that's like, you know what, if it can give me a quick reference that I could use as a jumping off point, then I should try to utilize whatever tools I can. I know I can't rely on it because it has to be me doing it. Other than that, I would very much not like to be replaced. But until AI can figure out how to grow hands and sculpt, I think I'm safe. And as long as I keep practicing how to draw and keep working, I'm also safe. Hopefully. Right now, there's currently two voices in my head. One is telling me how proportions work in real life, and the other is telling me that it's an anime, where proportions only matter a little bit. Ta-da! So there's a new trend going on right now about anti-AI work, which I did. I made me into a blind box. So there's like an art teacher, Irene, sculpting Irene drinking boba, everyday Irene, me with cats, and then the chase, which is me in an actual Halloween costume where I created a croc that would fit on my head.
I would love to see that.
It's on Instagram. In case anyone was wondering. And by I built it, it was a team effort because I know who's watching it with me. We'll say you didn't build that by yourself, but it is based off the Crocs that I am wearing. Yeah, because they got the little dragon gibbet on it. That was a gift from a TA who's currently at Montclair State University. Hi, Riley. I am teaching a manga camp at the Montclair Art Museum for teens. Please hold, I will tell you. The camp is scheduled, I believe, the last week of June. So that's June 30th, not including 4th of July, all the way till July 11th. And then I will also be teaching another one right after that, and somewhere in between a cartooning class. If you're interested in joining, I'll be here.